Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring a truly fascinating chapter of human history. We're going to look at how the very first arrivals in America took a vast, wild continent and turned it into a fully built, thriving world. And the craziest part? They engineered the whole shebang without a single ounce of modern technology.
Picture this for a second. Imagine you and your family are walking into a brand new land. There are no houses waiting for you, no roads, no grocery stores, no hardware stores. It's just raw, untamed nature. Forests, rivers, deserts, and mountains. Literally as far as the eye can see. So what's the very first thing you do to survive? What on earth do you eat? How do you build a shelter? This isn't just a fun thought experiment. This is the exact puzzle the first people in America had to solve.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're covering a brand new world, the geography of survival, masters of the forest, following the buffalo herds, engineering the desert, and finally, a fully built world. Starting off with Section 1, a brand new world, first arrivals in America.
So thousands of years ago, the very first hunters crossed into America. But they definitely didn't just stop at the border and set up camp. No, they kept moving. They spread out far and wide, eventually covering 2 entire continents. And everywhere they went, they were stepping onto a completely blank, untamed canvas.
That brings us to Section 2, the geography of survival, adapting to the land. Now, America is definitely not the same everywhere, right? And this was the absolute core challenge they faced. These early settlers met stark, literal life-or-death contrasts depending on where they ended up. You've got regions that are freezing cold and buried in snow, and then you have burning hot deserts with basically zero rain. A survival strategy that works on a snowy mountain? Yeah, that would literally be a death sentence in the desert. So the big takeaway here is that the land itself acted almost like a dictator. It demanded very specific ways of living. The environment completely shaped the birth of hundreds of distinct Native American tribes. It molded their cultures, their diets, and their homes, based entirely on the specific patch of geography they happened to call home. Let's look at our first regional masterclass in Section 3, Masters of the Forest, the Iroquois and Cherokee. These tribes looked around, saw endless trees, and basically engineered their entire lives around wood. For shelter, they created the longhouse. These things were massive. They were huge structures made out of wood and bark, specifically designed to be large enough to keep entire extended families safe, warm, and living together under one single roof. And their agricultural technology was just brilliant. It was known as the Three Sisters. See, these forest tribes didn't just toss random seeds in the dirt. They grew corn, beans, and squash all together. They figured out that these 3 crops biologically support one another. The corn provides a sturdy stalk for the beans to climb, while the wide squash leaves protect the soil and lock in moisture. They literally help each other survive, almost exactly like the extended families living inside those longhouses. Moving far to the west, we hit Section 4, following the buffalo herds, the Sioux and Cheyenne. So, without thick forests to provide wood for shelter, how do you survive on the wide open plains? Well, their ingenious solution was to base their entire existence around one phenomenal resource, the massive herds of buffalo. To these plains tribes, the buffalo was quite literally everything.
This reliance evolved into an absolute masterclass in efficiency. I mean, absolutely nothing was wasted. The meat provided their main source of food. The skin was expertly treated to create warm clothing and, of course, their iconic mobile homes, the teepees. Even the bones were crafted into essential daily tools. A single animal basically provided a full ecosystem for survival. Talk about sustainable living.
And because they relied so heavily on these herds, the Plains tribes couldn't just stay put in one spot. They became perfectly adapted nomads. They'd pack up their teepees and move from place to place, constantly aligning their lives and daily rhythms with the migration patterns of the buffalo. It was a life in constant, harmonious motion with nature.
Next up, our journey takes us to Section 5, Engineering the Desert, the Pueblo tribes.
Now, to survive this extreme desert climate without modern air conditioning or heating, they engineered adobe architecture. They literally took the desert earth itself, just clay and mud, and formed bricks to create these brilliant, thick-walled homes. The physics of these walls meant the inside stayed wonderfully cool during the scorching summer days, and then trapped the heat to keep everyone warm during those freezing desert nights. Pretty genius, right?
But honestly, what's even more astonishing than their homes is how they managed to feed themselves. They engineered complex irrigation systems right smack in the middle of the desert. They built small, incredibly precise canals, carving them right through the dry earth to carry vital river water directly to their crops. They effectively terraformed parts of the desert so they could grow food where it seemed absolutely impossible. Let's zoom out now for Section 6, a fully built world, thriving across America.
The most amazing takeaway from all of this is the sheer ingenuity of it all. They achieved all this survival, all this growth, and built these rich cultures entirely without modern machines, without steel tools, and definitely without digital technology. They pulled it off by relying completely on centuries of closely studying their local environments and then passing down that hyper-local knowledge generation after generation.
So by the time Europeans arrived centuries later, the Americas were absolutely not empty. Because of all these incredibly customized solutions, there were already hundreds of thriving tribes. Each one had distinct languages, totally unique traditions, and architectural marvels, from longhouses to teepees to adobe, that were perfectly suited to their specific little corners of the continent.
So when we think about the grand timeline, true American history really doesn't begin with European ships crossing the ocean. It begins right here. It begins with the brilliant, resourceful people who looked at a wild, unknown land and used sheer ingenuity to turn it into a home. And I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder today. What happens next? How would this established, deeply rooted, and perfectly adapted world react when it suddenly met explorers from an entirely different continent? Explorers who are about to change absolutely everything. Keep that question in mind as you continue your historical deep dives.